So first, we're going to talk about population versus sample. So the population is your entire group of individuals. And from that population, we take a sample, which is a subset of individuals in the population. And then we collect data from that sample. So we want information about a population, so we take a sample and we collect data. Now, there are good and bad ways to sample. A couple bad ways is convenience sampling and voluntary response. So convenience sampling is sampling that is convenient when you sample individuals that are easy to reach. For example, if I wanted a sample of East High School, but I just went and found the first 30 people that I could, that would be a convenient sample. Voluntary response is where people choose to be in the sample. An example of this would be if I sent out an email and told you guys that you could respond, you didn't have to. So only those that felt strongly about whatever it was I sent the email about would probably respond. The rest of you wouldn't, so it wouldn't represent the entire class. Good sampling. What we want to do most times is what's called a simple random sample, or an SRS. And in this, every group of size n, whatever size we're doing, is equally likely to be chosen. If you want to do an SRS, you label everyone. So if I numbered everyone in the class, then you randomize, and then you select. A good way to do this is using your calculator and the rand_int feature. Number everyone and then use rand_int to pick certain people. Other sampling techniques, we have the stratified random sample. This splits the population into groups. And then we choose a simple random sample from each group. So an example of this would be like the classes, splitting into groups, so freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. And then I chose a simple random sample of 30 freshmen, 30 sophomores, 30 juniors, and 30 seniors to represent East High School. A cluster sample is splitting population into groups as well. But then instead of choosing a simple random sample from each group, we randomly select a cluster. And then we sample everyone in the cluster. So the big difference between these two is with stratified, each group has different characteristics. So freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors all act a little differently. With a cluster sample, your clusters should be mini populations. So they need to be representative of the whole building. So an example of this would be homerooms. If homerooms had all 4 classes in them, if I were to pick random homerooms and then give surveys to everyone in there, that would be a cluster sample. And then some bad things that can happen when sampling is under coverage. Is when some members of the population can't or are less likely to be chosen. An example of this would be doing a phone survey but calling landlines. Since not everyone has a landline, you're undercovering those people that only have cell phones. Non-response bias is when an individual is selected but chooses not to participate or isn't reached. So this is a little different from voluntary response, because voluntary response, everyone has the option to answer, but this is when you select certain people, try to reach out to them, and they either choose not to participate or can't be reached. And then response bias is a pattern of inaccurate responses. And this could be from the way someone words the question, the interviewers influencing something, people lying, all could be different forms of response bias. So one example of this is if I asked you if you did your homework, some of you might lie to me because you don't want to disappoint me telling me you didn't do your homework. So that would be response bias.